Good morning and welcome to the Morning Connection, coming to you live from the very cool gardens of the Ligony Club in Kingston, Jamaica. Of course, you know we are on Best 100 FM, and we are available to you all over the island, except for some one or two spots. And on the internet, you can find us anywhere. Streaming on all of the available social media platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch. There might be one or two more, but you can find us. This is your host, Minette Lawrence, with me, as always, co-host, Pastor Percival Palmer. And it is a delight for us to be here. It is Free-Flowing Thursday, when we get an opportunity to close off on the many issues that we touch on during the week. And unfortunately, you don't get a chance to call us, but you do get a chance to make note of the things that you want to pick up us. Let's do that again. You get a chance to make a note of the things that you want to touch on with us in the coming week ahead, God willing, and we're all alive to do this again. So welcome, welcome, welcome to those who are on air, those who are online. We welcome you. It is a pleasure to be with you this morning. It is the start of our weekend.
A long weekend it shall be.
Yeah, so that makes it even sweeter.
That's good.
How are you, Percy?
I am very good. I'm very, very good. A lot of things are up this weekend.
Well, I see you had a makeover too. May I just say you look fine?
I look dapper, sister. Just say the word, though, man. You can't touch it. Shh. I am hot. There's a lot of things are becoming very hot in our society. The temperature.
It's your fault, anointed one.
My fault?
You call it down. You bring down fire on the altar. You must expect it to consume
my Lord,
something.
sister. Yeah, that theme of destruction of altars is a very important one, because as you and I know, when significant things happen in the life of persons, in the Word of God, in the Scripture, they built an altar. You know, the first altar was built.
Is that Abraham?
No, before
Which
that.
one? You're
Cain
going
and
back to
Abel.
Cain and Abel.
Yes, and you see what
Yes,
happened on that altar.
yes, Cain and Abel, and
Yes,
then there
yes.
was
To the altar.
Noah, and
Yes, there are a lot of
a
altars.
lot of altars have been built.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I think you're going to need to explain it when we come back because I don't think that many of us even realize the spiritual significance of some of the things we do when we invest a lot of emotion and time in creating something as a monument.
yeah,
We do it in our careers, some people do it in their families. There always comes a point in human existence, all of us, when we make a bargain. And sometimes we don't even realize exactly what we're doing. But let me tell you, there are some ancient spiritual beings around that they're just
watch.
hovering by your shoulder,
But
waiting to
watch
hear
you see
you
what you're
say,
going to do.
yeah, they're just waiting for you to say, you know, man, if only I could have this or that. I would give anything to get this or
Yes.
that. It's it's like an instinctive thing in your psyche to make a bargain
Yes, it is.
with
It
the
is.
invisible. You're there talking to yourself, saying, "If only." A lot of time we say "Lord" because we're such churchy people. But some of the things we ask for is not the Lord who answers.
And you hear so many stories of persons who have sold out
Yep,
to different things and they don't even know what they were
they
doing.
didn't know,
What
didn't
they
have the
were
full
doing.
consciousness of it. But the one with whom you made the bargain knew what you were doing.
Yes.
Thank God, though, there is a path to salvation or recovery. When I say salvation, I really do mean freedom, everybody.
Yes.
Don't cringe and think I'm dragging you to the altar.
You're going back to the altar again. We're not dragging you to the
All
altar.
right,
We've come
it's
up on our 6:30
6:30.
break.
Yeah, please
Wow.
stay with us. We're going to be right back. Good morning. Welcome back. Percy and Minette at the helm, taking you through the early hours of Thursday.
But it's really early hours when I was coming down this morning. I was saying,
Dark,
what time is
yeah.
it? Jeez.
Yeah,
Is
really
it?
dark.
It's really dark.
Yesterday too.
Yes, I'm
Yep.
wondering what's happening.
Well,
Is it the season?
Jamaica is sad.
Jamaica is sad.
Jamaica sad, and it's still a bit chilly in the morning too,
Mm-hmm.
by our standards to you people in England and Canada, who are actually in cold places. Good morning, Mr. Henry. Oh, wow. Our high and privileged calling is to do the will of God and the power of God for the glory of God. You know, I feel Delroy is a preacher hiding out in some engineering shop.
Right. You should say, is he
Yeah,
an
because
engineer? Is he
yeah,
all over?
he's a kind of engineer, I think. Good morning to you also, Wayne. You're up bright and early, and he's touching the nerve where we are. You know, he says some people don't care how them get what them want. Them just want to get it. Yeah, because we were talking about the bargains you make, the bargains you make, not really appreciating that your words have creative and declarative power. And to spirits that lack body and need body to have any legitimate presence in this realm, they're just waiting to hear you say the words, say the words. I mean, many of us might recall movies from our childhood
Yeah, man.
where they are depicting the interaction between the spiritual realm and the physical realm, the natural realm, where the spirits are hovering, waiting for you to give them permission to do something that you don't even have the half knowledge of exactly what door you're opening. And so it is. We end up creating altars because we put something of value in the spiritual world, entreating spirits to give us back something, whatever it might be. Some people invest their children. I mean, it is a very real thing in some societies that you offer up your firstborn
Yeah.
for certain
And that's a
things.
serious thing, you know, it's that you touched on it. That is why a lot of persons are against abortion because it is Molech
They,
was one of
they,
the things
they
that
conceive it to be, yeah.
wow.
And you look across Jamaica and you can look in some families and see, you know, deformities and mental illnesses and various crosses. Or you might notice that certain people don't live beyond a certain age. Your
Yeah,
father dead at 50.
yes, I need to break that. So
Yeah.
this thing of altars is very, 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 very important. And when we're tracking, um, look at in the life of Abraham.
Yeah.
An altar is a place of sacrifice, a
Sacrifice
place
and
of
exchange.
exchange and commitment. And when significant things happened in the life of Abraham, he built an
He
altar.
built an altar
He built an
and
altar,
sacrificed
sacrificed
something on
something.
it,
Yeah,
usually blood.
yeah. And so
Put
we don't
something on.
understand it. And then yesterday we were jokingly saying it when one of the kings, the prophet came and spoke to him and said, "This is what God has said," and he stretched forward his
From the
of the
altar
altar, and what
because,
happened? And it just
yeah,
dried up.
if you know, if you paint the picture of it, because we weren't saying it on air, by the way.
Oh,
Yes,
some of the
so
time I miss where we were, in terms
we
of
weren't
what is.
saying it on air. A caller had asked about the business of pastors touching and men falling,
Falling and
men and
praying.
women. One person said they notice it's mostly women.
Yes,
Yeah, we're lighter on our feet.
yeah.
And so in the off air, I was saying to Pastor Percival, we went into Second Kings. Second Kings.
Yeah.
King Jeroboam was, they had built an altar in Bethel. Now, everybody who know Bible history will
Bethel is a
recall that there
Bethel.
was the main temple that Solomon had consecrated and on which God had put his name, but Jerusalem was far. And
Let's go there.
another temple, not another altar, was created in Bethel, a facsimile of the one in Jerusalem. And it was part of it. We have to remember that these things, it's not just religious lore or old time story, very political as well. This king didn't want the people going off to Jerusalem and getting sidetracked and becoming more loyal to
Jerusalem.
Jerusalem. He was building a power base, and so he created an altar at Bethel, and he was serving. He was like the high priest of his own altar.
Can you
So
imagine that?
he's gone and
Him
crossed
gone
the line
define, him
now.
crossed the line.
Yeah, crossed the line. He's not just head of state, politics. He's now also chief priest, and he was serving. Every altar has an attendant. He was the attendant on the altar,
And taking
and
sacrifice and really taking the place of God.
and standing in the place of God. So sometimes when we speak about our leaders, when we are cautioning our leaders and
To be
saying,
careful.
you have gone too far, or we're saying, do not seek to stand in the place of God on certain matters pertaining to the welfare of the people. Leave room for God's counsel, the counsel of God. From Monday or Tuesday, we were talking about the expressions of the Spirit of God. One of them is the counsel of God. It is the design of things that man goes to God to say, what should I do in this situation? What is your will for the people whom you have put in my care?
And you see, it's
Yeah.
important that they understand that they are delegated authority.
It's delegated authority.
They are not the
You gotta go
ultimate,
back
but
to
the
the
ultimate authority.
Yeah.
And so when man seeks to stand in the place of God, which is why at another time I'll speak to it. When you begin to do that, remember, him say him share in glory
with anybody.
no anybody. So those of us who begin to do that, and one character that is known, and this is not only in Bible but extra biblical sources, point to the fact that Nebuchadnezzar stood up and said, "This is what I look at me.
Look at what I've built
Look
for
at
my
what."
glory.
And the watchers looked down and said, "Really?" And he got a warning before. And he saw God merciful. God is so merciful. That is a part of who is
Gave him a dream.
And
It
then
was
he got an
interpreted by
interpretation.
Daniel.
Yeah, and him still.
Daniel, the man of great accuracy with his interpretation.
And go tell him. And him still.
Yeah.
So as him saying, go eat grass. And I don't wish that on anybody at all. That you lose your mind. And you're like the beast in the field. You're eating grass. You're eating grass.
All right, you're going to renew that warning because I know you're thinking about recent happenings and all the people who are building up their power base.
Yes.
And I use Jeroboam as an example because of that very thing, pulling power to yourself, seeing even the very worship of God as a threat. When we see people expanding in their spirituality, recognizing and valuing the counsel of God, and sending out the word that, hey, we're not just here doing as we please. There is accountability. And we disparage them. It is a very commonplace thing for political leaders to
All over the
speak
world.
disparagingly of spiritual leaders who are trying to bring back a balance between
Yeah.
man and God. Let's put it that way. And we've seen it happen in Jamaica, and you're going to see more of it in days to come. King Jeroboam had taken all this to himself and regarded the worship of God as a threat to his political strength, to the state. So he created his own altar.
True.
Now, you had said before, an altar is a place of sacrifice, a place of exchange, but it is also a portal between realms.
It is.
So you can pull from the other realm
you
something
can.
that
You
will have
will pull.
impact
You will
in
pull.
your where you are.
And remember,
So-
in the other realm we talk about, there's the good and the bad.
Yes.
And people who will let's go a bit deeper, because we know for a fact that those who operate in terms of the arts, the black magic arts, they have these altars, and guys who have come out of it have said, I know of a gentleman, his wife had to pray him out, man. She had to go in fasting and prayer for years
to break the
control, the control
Yeah.
that this gentleman had. And he will tell you, and people say, oh, nothing, no, it's all good, really. It is not all good.
let's finish Jeroboam
Yes.
because
Yeah.
what
Yes.
comes next is important in understanding what we're contending with. You know, even our own situation in Jamaica. You and I have been on our own altars interceding for this country. Many other Jamaicans have. We're just two persons who are saying that this is what we've been doing. And we pulled something out that is bringing things in alignment by creating exposure. And God, in His mercy, always shine the light of truth before He executes judgment.
Yeah.
So man must go into the judgment having had every opportunity to
turn.
reject the righteousness of God.
To accept.
So, well,
to
reject, accept or reject,
reject.
because
Yeah.
it's a choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you're not gonna, no judgment going to sneak upon you. You're gonna have your opportunity to say yea or nay. So King Jeroboam, serving on his altar, was visited by a prophet. The prophet didn't come to chastise the king. The prophet came to speak to the altar. That was the instruction he got. Tell this altar, its time is up, and you will know when the altar breaks open and the ashes fall to the ground. You're burning things on it, so ashes build up. When the ashes fall to the ground, altar split open. Jeroboam, who without the power that he pulled from his altar, was a mere mortal.
True.
Jeroboam didn't like the threat against his altar. So he pulled from the altar and he got something.
Yeah.
And he stretched out his hand to deploy it against the prophet. And his arm became withered and frozen. Because the realm into which Jeroboam reached through the altar, it's not specific to Jeroboam's desires or control, because all power belongs to God. And God froze his hand, it was withered, and it's the same prophet. Jeroboam had enough sense to say, pray to God that my arm may be well.
Yes.
And the prophet did what he was required to do. You don't want to hear the story of that prophet because he didn't survive either. But the point I'm making is that when you set up your altar, you have created a portal between the two realms and you have access to power. But that power is still subject to the
ultimate
control.
power.
Absolutely.
The ultimate power. That is why I trust God. That's why I serve God.
Because he said all power belongs to me.
And so those people who are going about and doing their thing and really don't understand what they're playing with, that's why we point them to the ultimate power who has been manifested in the person.
Well, you know,
of
my
Jesus
personality
Christ.
is such, Pastor, that I'm not settling for no second class.
You know what? You want you want the best, sister.
I
you
want
the best.
If I hear that there's power, I want to know, well, who controls it? And who controls the man that controls it? And upward I go. So I'm not settling for the political power of man in this realm.
No, sir.
I'm not settling for any intermediary. I want to be, and so should you. And guess what happened? The pathway is clear for everybody to have the same level of access. Now, you must know, I have seen a mango. Is Earl Brown on? Because he would realize that, Lowell, there's a beautiful mango on the ground over there. I want to show it on camera. I can't believe it.
As you talk about access and thing.
Unbelievable.
It is
out like an out of season.
It is an out of season mango.
And I've been here all morning. I definitely have a mango radar. Someone saw it before me, you're saying.
One up in the tree, they're right up in the tree.
Look at this mango. I just sing the mango. Are you seeing the mango on camera? Lowell, I'm not even seeing anything. Are you seeing my mango? Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
But it's important
Look
that we recognize. It's a miracle. Yes.
Notwithstanding the fact that a rat bit it and therefore it is no longer mine. It was sacrificed. Beautiful mango. Okay, let's put that away.
But it is the altar speaks of sacrifice, it speaks of surrender, it speaks of your faith. Because if you don't understand what it is about, as you say, there's power there. And so we, as believers, when we pray and we come to the place of total surrender in our homes and things, we have built an altar because we are recognizing who God is And it's a place I surrender and says, Lord, I know, I recognize that you are the ultimate power. So I surrender myself to you. And when you look at Abraham, and then Abraham, when his name was, there were significant points in his own life that he built altar. And guess what? It was progressive.
Yes, from
Progressive
level
in
to level.
level. Yeah,
It
it
was
moved
always
until
moving up.
ultimately when the ultimate one was made and God said to him, hey, all right, let me see if you're really serious about your commitment to me. And he says, bring Isaac. And now we need to understand what Isaac represents, you know. Isaac represented the promise that says, through you, I'm going to bless all nations in the earth. And God come back to him and says, let me see if you really believe what it is. Give it back to me. And he built an altar. You know?
But you're also touching on the precedent for this sacrifice of children. Just as God said, will you lay the thing that you love the most and which represents your legacy? Will you put it on the altar? So it is. Other forces
Are using the same
use
thing
the same thing.
to
Yes,
destroy our future.
yes, yes.
Because
They
for
use
every
the same
child
thing.
that we say, because of the circumstances of my life, I can't have with another child or thing. If you believe that children are the heritage of the Lord, and every child that is born is in purpose, you trust God and says, oh, I don't see this happening. And it was kind of funny. I'm just reflecting in my own life and situation. We normally say one child, not good. So because they say bird can fly upon one wing, so you get two, and we say we finish.
That is the family
You
planning
get
advice.
it?
Boy, Percy, you like, we're not going there again.
But then, when we think that we were finished and moving on, God says, okay, I'm sending you a Benjamin. That really is so. What children we are heritage. That's what
You're
I'm speak that
emphasizing.
children are heritage, and every child that is born is a sign of the future of hope, and we mustn't do it lightly. We must plan for them. We must do everything within our power to ensure that when they are here, we care for them properly. So we have to plan for them, you know.
Do you know, whenever preachers start to talk about every child that is born is so and so and so and so.
Child of the
Um,
future.
yeah, well, no, I remember Jesus's advent being described as not being a child born of, from the will of man, by the will of man, which tells you that there are some children who come into the world through the will of man, not because God had set it in his what is there's the permissive will and there's the perfect will, right? Not because it was in the perfect will of God. There are some children who come through the will of men. Then I always think about Bathsheba and David's first child, whom God took. That was a child born of adultery and conspiracy to murder, and the Lord took him, born through the will of man, I would say.
True.
Just an aside,
But
because
then ultimately,
yeah,
God in his sovereignty, which goes back to that, understood what was at play, and even when it came, and the young man died, and David was there mourning, saying, God, can you not? And then God, you know,
no mercy for that. You force that one into existence.
yeah.
And we speak about Ishmael too, born through the faithless actions of of Abraham and Sarah, who thought that, well,
God not
he's
let me help you.
not working it
The
fast
thing that
enough.
we saying, God help those who help themselves, which is not found in the scripture at all. So that
Yeah.
is another
So
thing.
I just kind of make those points because
And we understand it as we are
we
unpacking it, and people are
right.
beginning to understand this thing.
Yeah,
So you're
and
rightly discerning the word,
the word, right.
rightly divine
Yes.
the word.
And
So
remembering that there really are levels and levels of understanding. When you think you've got through first lesson,
carry to our
second
next
lesson
one.
give you some shades of gray and some colorations that you really need the wisdom of God
I
to,
love that. I
yeah,
love that. So we've been talking about wisdom all of this week. I
yeah,
love that. We had
yeah.
prayer last night, and I pray that over our people that in this time that God will cause for His
His
wisdom,
wisdom to manifest
this
in
yeah,
all of the decision
decision making that
makers.
we're doing,
Yeah.
and yeah, and as we continue to lift up
Hmm.
Mr. Tumbling, so more and more is happening in terms of what's happening at SSC. I say, oh yes, Father.
Yeah.
But
You
I
know,
do believe that more is going to unfold.
of course. Of
More
course.
more exposure is happening, and the reach is going to shake, shake. I hear a shaking in the heavens. Um, God has shaken a lot of things in terms of what it has happened. You know. Some trust in chariots and some in horses. But we remember the name of the Lord our God. They are brought down and fallen, but we are risen and stand upright. God has shaken this nation to the very core,
All
and
right.
He's continuing to shake.
Minor matter, but you know, Earl and I are having a thing.
And
The mango. He didn't see the mango.
so I want to see the mango.
So I am posing up the mango again. I'm posing up the good side
And the
because
mango.
the
Yeah.
other side has a sacrificial bite. It's already been first fruits already gone to nature.
But that's interesting that you speak of first fruits. Because that's why even in the scripture, when the harvest come, they bring their first fruits to the place of worship, of sacrifice, and give it
Yeah,
back
yeah.
and release. But because when you do that first fruits, it's about saying, God, bring the first fruits to you, give it to you, and we know when we do that, we're first honoring you who are the person who gives us the idea to get well.
Yeah.
And you are the one who has made all of this provision. So bring it back to you. You don't need it, but it's a sign of our heart condition. Because we are truly recognizing who you are, what you stand for us in our lives, so we're giving it back to you.
You know, some of these principles, which over time, one or two, actually, not one or two, there's been a deliberate move to denature the Word of God.
And to pervert it.
And of course, once you denature it, you've created a
Perverted
perversion.
perversion.
Whilst in the dark, they are busy doing every kind of thing according to biblical principles to entreat other forces
Forces
to
to
give
put.
up the power to make and to hold wealth. So, for example, when you look at the rules, because just as how laws were set down for man, laws were established for nature.
True.
The tree, when it bears fruits, when you plant your crops and so on. For the first, what was it? The first three bearings, the first three seasons that a tree gives up fruit. It's not for man. We're not supposed to eat it.
True.
You know, we have a tree at home, several trees. I think we have we have a rose apple tree, we have a red apple tree, and I think there's another tree that we planted. And for the first couple of, in fact, maybe this year is the first time we might get fruit from certainly the rose apple tree. It bears every year and the birds eat it. We don't get one.
So what is happening now? So you need to run the birds away.
No, the birds are taking the bounty that's given to God.
Yeah, true. I never thought of it that way. Oh my Lord.
Even in nature, the rules
Uh,
apply.
yeah.
And when you read through how the animals were chosen for the sacrifices on the altar, this now is the old fashioned real altar, not the spiritual altar like your heart is an altar and Golgotha, even though many of us have not even seen Golgotha. It is the altar where Christ was crucified. So we have those altars that to which we are aligned. But when the altar was a physical brick and mortar
That
place,
yeah.
the animals that you put on it had to be of a special pedigree. the firstborn of this,
Clean everything.
because God had said to the people of Israel, all of the firstborn are mine,
Yeah.
of your body and of your animals and of your crops.
And interestingly, when the children of Israel were being delivered, firstborn go after blood.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yes.
there are a lot of principles there to
That are
take it all. Yeah.
that are still applicable. Whatever it is you're doing, you still have to bear it in mind. When
And
we
we
come
come up
back,
to
we're
our 7 o'clock
we're,
break, and
we're
I
gonna
see
be less spiritual when we
we're
return
going
and
into the
start
news.
to
You're
dig
doing into
into
the thing
yes,
that is there. Yeah.
yes.
Best 100 FM is the authentic voice of Jamaica, promoting your prosperity with better vibes and let us promote your goods and services for you. Advertise with us. For more information, call our office at 876 276 8935. That's 276 8935.
This is your beloved Pastor Percy from the Morning Connection. Support our commitment to Jamaica by joining us on Wednesday mornings at 7:30 when we pray for the nation. Show us you care.
Welcome to the Ligony Club. This beautiful property is nestled in the heart of New Kingston and is the single largest sporting facility in the English-speaking Caribbean. Jake?
Good morning. Welcome back to the Morning Connection. We're live. And we've been doing some investigative journalism, if that's what you call it. But before you comment on what you're
Oh, because
commenting
I
on,
was only going to talk about the $10 mango.
no, the $10 mango, no, man. But look like
Yeah,
everywhere in the mango
my
business. I wonder if
brethren.
we were to reap all of the stock in mango season, how much money would make off this tree? Because a lot of the times we come and it's on the ground, which points to a failure to generally not
harvest.
to harvest it and to put it in a place that it can be used. Like mango
Mango pulping.
pulp. You remember you have this idea of these agro
Yes,
processing
I'm just looking for a
mobile.
partner. I want a partner for my mobile agro processing
You want
idea,
the
but it's a
technology or you want the investment?
I
Which
want
side
the
you look?
investment, both. I
Okay,
want
I
a
know somebody who
technology
can do the
partner.
technology. I just reconnected with them a
Okay.
week ago. He was former director of the Scientific Research Council.
Okay.
Gentleman, was we
Yeah.
had weren't partnering, we're trying to bring in,
Let's do it,
and
man.
we're doing
I
trying to
want
bring
one
in
that operates at
yogurt,
community
which is
level.
the things that we have. We had it first.
Yeah.
Yeah, we started it and would make the thing and deliver it to the supermarkets, those with the machine. And that
Ah,
was like a lot. That's when I
a
just got
long
married.
time
When we just
ago.
got married and we had seen that this is where the market was going and we came up with a product. But anyway, that's behind about. But that's behind me. That's some of the things you have
Yeah.
done in your
There are
lifetime.
many things in the future that are yet to be tackled.
Yeah.
So,
So we talk about the spirit of God
mm-hmm.
and bringing things back to remembrance. Because some of the times we forget things, and then the Holy Spirit says, touch you on the
Remember, I
shoulder.
gave you
Remember
this?
that? And then it
Yes.
gives you a lead to go and investigate. So
So that's the
you, Sean,
foundation.
yes, you have just said, the Holy Spirit
Yeah.
just pinch your ears and
So,
say, yeah.
all right. So let's do it right because we have to touch on it. Months ago, Percy and I spoke about what you do when you're at the point of victory. Things have been exposed, and it's clear that your enemy was a false and perhaps an ineffective adversary. Put it that way. We have been sort of railing against the inequities and desiring greater accountability, transparency in how things are done in our country. And the financial sector is chief among those areas which require greater equity. The
Yes.
cry for justice is
Greater
strident.
interest rate
Yeah,
spread
man. Everything, the
and
fees the
the
banks
banks will
take,
take. Yeah, man.
the way the Bank of Jamaica let them just do what they want to do. And now we discover the FSC was no better. In all those times, looking at the government's timetable for legal reform, there was always in it a reference to a piece of legislation that a special resolution regime for financial institutions. I was always kind of puzzled
Why?
why we were moving in that direction when we really had so much already on
Regulation are coming out of
some that we
FinSac.
weren't even using.
Right.
And coming out of FinSac, I could understand them saying, all right, if when banks fail or if there are problems with the financial institution, we don't want it to become
A
the
public purse.
taxpayers' issue. We want to put some mechanism in place. And so I thought, okay, it's a self-protective move on the part of the government. But that piece of legislation has been somewhat slow in coming. In fact, I haven't been tracking it specifically because the state of emergency and some of the other issues have put a great deal of pressure on their reform program, and this issue has not been resolved. At least I've not heard talk of it. So I'm looking at the front page of the Gleaner. Let's follow the issue now because it's a bit technical, but it's one of the ways in which smokes and mirrors are used.
Smokes and mirrors. Oh boy.
Yeah, man. Smoke and mirror. That's one of the ways it's used to just mystify the things going on in government, and sometimes government itself don't even know. Meaning all the parts of government don't seem to know. The headline this morning is that the FSC has blocked an application by the Stocks and Securities Limited directors to go into voluntary liquidation. And then there's a little conversation about why companies would seek to do that. It is evident why Stocks and Security would seek to go into liquidation because they would obviously want to realize the value of their assets to pay out whatever liabilities they see coming that they don't have cash on hand to cover it. So that makes sense. But Stocks and Security is under temporary management and it's a regulated entity. And in any event, even for voluntary liquidation, you can't just wind up your affairs without the permission, consent, knowledge, involvement of your creditors. even for a
regulators.
voluntary. And where it's a regulated entity, the regulator has its own role to play. So I'm saying, why is it that the directors were free to move in that direction, that you now needed to go to court to stop them, as opposed to the normal processes of law taking their course, where, for example, if you or I today had an issue with a creditor which could cause the creditor to feel that I need to make sure that person keep his house, keep his car, keep his bank account in funds. So when it is my day to collect, he hasn't
Sold it
parted
off.
with it. Right. You would have seen injunctions, freezing orders, tracing orders, meaning if you put some money somewhere, they follow it to see exactly where it has gone. If it has gone into another house or into, your girlfriend's new car.
A bank account. Yeah. So it
I know
occurred.
that would never happen, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man.
They trace it into whatever asset it has gone and they freeze that asset. You're not hearing, that's like the things that happen in the first 2 days. Usually, by the time the news breaks, people have known about it for weeks and lawyers have been in
months.
huddles and things are happening. You don't hear none of that with SSL. All
Stocks
you
and
hear,
securities.
yeah, all you hear is that, so there was some house that was taken in relation to an unconnected debt
child.
months ago,
Yeah, they direct that.
and it never even got to court.
Right.
So workouts are taking place, behind the scenes. Yet for Stocks and Securities Limited, they were able to be filing. They filed something with the company's registry, seeking to go into voluntary liquidation, and it was this was done from January 16.
Today is January 26, 10 days ago.
10 days ago.
But the thing really broke last week.
And it was, before. So the point I'm making is that even at this most sensitive and noisy time in the financial sector, you're still not seeing the moves that you would expect to see in a situation like this. And it has me puzzled.
Why.
Right. So as I'm reading it, I said, didn't the government say that they were going to put a regime in place to ensure that financial institutions that run into problem, there is some mechanism in place to contain the damage and to right size them without causing it to expand and maybe even result in a crash of the sector? Didn't they say? So I went and did just went back into the archives and found the
white paper.
I know you're saying, the consultation, right.
Consultative paper.
There is, you find it online because they haven't scrubbed it, a consultation paper with the proposals for a special resolution regime for financial institutions. There had been a study conducted, the participants of it, let me tell you who, because you're hearing every kind of denial these days, jointly published by members of the Financial Regulatory Committee, comprising Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, Bank of Jamaica, Financial Services Commission, and Jamaica Deposit Insurance Corporation. The proposals pertain to creating a special resolution regime for financial institutions in Jamaica, financial holding companies, deposit-taking institutions, securities dealers like SSL, and insurance companies, Life and General. So they were looking at the whole financial sector.
Yeah. So they weren't so just break it down for me.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I'm gonna comment on is the participants of the sector included the Financial Services Commission, who would have at the time
known what was happening.
They knew what was happening with SSL. They knew that SSL was a candidate,
potential candidate
for this treatment, because even then they were describing SSL as some kind of problem child with an issue of they lack discipline. But I just want to tell you what the objective of this was.
And this happened in
2017,
yeah,
right in the zone.
of when
Yes,
it
and
was,
they would have known. In fact, I suspect that the SSL internal workings and the experience they were having made it all the more urgent to put some kind of regime in place. The regime, we had the FinSAC bailout. Government was anxious to avoid another bailout, so they wanted to create a framework for a bail-in, where instead of you throwing water out of the boat, you would put inside of it the things to stop the leak.
to stop the leak.
This,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Expression, yeah.
the bail-in is defined in the document as a restructuring mechanism, however labeled, that enables loss absorption and the recapitalization of an entity or the effective capitalization of a bridge institution through the cancellation, write down, or termination of equity debt instruments and so on. Essentially, what they're saying is that any company that came into this special resolution regime
Would be able to.
would be able to restructure their affairs internally by taking in more capital or writing down existing debt and so on and so forth. Yeah, they had a structure. They were creating a structure in 2017. They envisioned it, conceptualized it, and were moving to put it into law so that when a crash like this happens, they would have had the system in place that would have cauterized it and maybe even cauterized it quietly
without any major
upheaval. But the Lord knew we needed major upheaval.
But I keep saying it.
Gonna,
That's a principle of done in darkness revealed.
Absolutely.
But
I was just wondering why you needed to put a law in place for something that ought to be the result of, good legal advice and
and if you had good governance procedures in place, you wouldn't need to go there. Now that's what it boils down to.
Yeah.
Because here you're seeing, like in Loop, it was saying that in terms of both, and they are making the claim that unauthorized withdrawals were made with that email that them saying that look like enough it really going on. No, that and a blow and I'm saying what?
So I want to give you some of the highlights. Yeah. The government now justifying why they're on this path. They spoke about the 2008 global financial crisis, which led to various changes in the regulatory regime for the administration of financial institutions. The objective of these reforms has been to improve the ability of financial institutions to deal with market and economic shocks, to maintain financial stability and protect the real economy. Notwithstanding the resilience gained through regulatory reforms, failures may occur, like a massive fraud, and it brings about a catastrophic failure. To deal with these failures in an orderly way, reforms have included enhancements to the legal framework to provide mechanisms to resolve these financial institutions if failure is imminent or does occur. At the time of this report in 2017, as they're doing that, they knew that failure was imminent. At the very least, was a likely possibility for, we can say, stocks and securities, because now their business, their street, so we know.
Yeah.
It's actually a good thing that preemptively they were seeking to put a system in place to catch it. The timing does not escape my attention. The overriding objective of these arrangements for resolution is to reduce the resort to public funds when failures occur while preserving vital economic functions. What triggered the memory is the Prime Minister at the Stock Exchange function saying that there will be no bailout.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's what I said. It brought no
that's
bailout
what's
again.
right. They were moving to put something in place to avoid a resort to public funds. And that's all good and well. The fact is, it does not appear that they did. The mess that I see reported on the front page tells me they didn't. And the second thing is, in coming up with these ideas and systems, they had knowledge. That's really where I'm going.
No, they're
They
not.
had knowledge of the imminence of this, the kind of problem that is happening today.
But if FSC was a part of this consultative, they would have known.
They would have known. Who was also a part of it is the same. How do you pronounce his name? Jide?
Jade, yeah,
The man who is now a member of from Bank of Jamaica, who is now one of the commissioners.
FSC commissioner, yeah.
He too, he was a part of this. And I can't believe that they were doing their consultative work and not actually pulling from real world data as to the potential or the urgency for the need of this kind of structure that they spoke about. The reforms recognize and distinguish systemically important financial institutions because of their potential impact on the broader economy if they fail. Now, a bank failing because of market events and economic shocks.
Understood.
That's understood.
But a bank failing
because
of bad governance and thievery and fraud.
thievery under the eyes of the regulator. There's no system you can really create that will minimize the impact on the economy, because a loss of confidence in the whatever it is we're doing here is not going to be addressed by the same people putting in stronger medicine, because the weak medicine that they had, they never even used. Time for a break, 7:31. Right, we'll be right back.
It's like, yeah, well,
Best 100 FM is the authentic voice of Jamaica, promoting your prosperity with better vibes and better music. Let us promote your goods and services for you. Advertise.
We're back. Good morning. Welcome back. I was doing something that even to me sometimes is a little tedious. Just trying to break down a document prepared by the Ministry of Finance in 2017. It is a consultation paper setting out the proposals for a special resolution regime for financial institutions. The the coincidence of the FSC going through the rigors of trying to bring SSL, to tame SSL in 2016, 2017, I can't, I can't help but notice these things were happening at the same time, which to my mind suggests that SSL provided some real world evidence to the FSC that such a regime was needed. When you see the professionals who were reporting on SSL's operations throughout the years from 2013 up, they were not ignorant people. They understood the implication of a financial institution not filing audited reports or their audited reports being qualified or just not being able to do things on time when you know from the first day that this thing is going to be needed at a specific time. They understood that there was trouble in the camp. And Jamaica's, I think our cry is not hiding the fact that there's trouble in the camp. Actually, that is the cry. It has to be that a regulator carries the responsibility of ensuring that other persons who are taking decisions don't get harmed by their omission in, letting things be known in the proper way. Not saying you have to go and say more than you need to, but if a financial institution is under investigation or under scrutiny or is in a process with the regulator, that has to be known. So persons who are making investment choices can take advice on the matter. That's how it works. Everything that affects investment choices affects your confidence.
And it's all about confidence.
Yes. And you can tell that the government had a concern about the eventuality of financial institutions being in problems. You could tell. The consultation paper is very clear. And I know why the Spirit sent me to the consultation paper as opposed to the law. Because the law wouldn't tell you who participated in it. It could have been something that, the foreigners sent down here and said, listen, you need to pass this law so you can get your next drawdown of IMF money or whatever grants we might be qualified for. But this is work, real work done by the very players who are stepping in now to be a part of the resolution. Bank of Jamaica was a part of the study. The Ministry of Finance, FSC, naturally. And I don't think FSC would go to the party without bringing some goodies to say, well, listen, we have institutions who are in this or that condition, and we need to be able to.
Up to 30.
Yes.
38, they have 38 that they look
38
yeah.
licensed entities.
Yeah.
Right. One of the objectives of this new system they want to introduce is to give the regulator adequate powers to do what it needs to do when the institution falls. And those powers should not have required the FSC to be in court trying to fight off the SSL directors liquidating their company.
So would you say what they were thinking about, it would have been a good piece? Yes. A good piece of legislation. So we are not saying that it because what it does, it seeks to look at loopholes that exist within the present legislation.
The framework.
The framework. So it's a good paper. You have the SWATs and the...
Yeah, you're looking at it now.
I found
it. Right. It's available online to those of you who want to know who knew what and when. If the government reached this far in, what date have you
February.
when
It
it
was
was?
February.
Yeah,
It's on the BOJ.
website.
Yeah, that's where I
Right.
found
So
it.
if they have concluded a consultation, and it means they knew that
Yeah,
there was a threat and some danger.
yeah. So it's
And
February
so,
27th of February
yeah.
2017, almost 5 years ago.
And today, here we are.
Yeah, 5 years ago.
Here we are.
Hmm.
So we all feel that when people are denying things, they say you protest too much. We understand that when persons are denying things, it means there's something they don't really want you to lock in on. And what I'm seeing here is that from the ministry to Bank of Jamaica to the FSC itself, they understood the necessity for having a system to deal with the collapse of financial institutions. What did you find? Share.
It was a priority legislation on I'm just going in terms of what they wanted to do. It was there in terms of trying to get this from 2020.
Yeah, it was on the, I kept hearing about it and I kept wondering, you know, because I'm so accustomed to government kind of covering itself in the various ways, I was curious about this piece of legislation. And I think it was conceived out of actual knowledge that there was an imminent need for it.
And it's interesting. It's like, whoo.
We're going through all of it. Okay.
What I'm going through is like
um,
51 pieces of legislation that were a priority in 2020 to 2021.
yeah.
51 pieces.
But you see, we got sidetracked with the state of emergency.
Correct.
And there are some things that dominated Parliament's schedule, which maybe one would say, it's that whole business of picking at scabs, addressing symptoms, and not really going to the root cause. So you end up paying a higher price at the end of the day when the things you didn't get to do, there's a crisis in those areas.
And you know where it was under? The
Yeah.
ministry it was under is the Prime Minister Ministry. Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation. And they had like under them, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So there's insurance bill revenue. It was one of the things that they wanted to get done.
Yeah, man, every time they spoke about the calendar and the priority areas, that one was in it. Yes, well, talk about how did this fraud go undetected for 13 years. That's how it went undetected for 13 years.
They have 51 pieces. I wonder how much of these they have actually passed. Oh my Lord.
That's an assignment for you at another time.
You know, because I think about it, but
So here are some steps. Let's give the update because these are the less sexy part of what's going on. The FSC has restrained Stocks and Securities Limited from interfering with the probe into the defrauding of dozens of accounts, including track legend Usain Bolt of approximately $3 billion, and to comply with the directions of the FSC and temporary manager Ken Tomlinson and those under his direction. The FSC is also seeking to stop SSL directors from reorganizing the company or its operations, whether it be in any document form or organization of its members or the assets and liabilities. One of the first effects of putting a manager or a receiver into a business is that the directors are stripped of their powers. They can't pass resolutions more than to just sit with each other and commiserate at the bar or on their favorite veranda. They can't hold general meetings. The receiver basically takes over and stands in the place of the directors.
That's one correction. It was actually under Mr. Clark's ministry.
Finance.
Yeah, Minister.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so that's all.
So you were blaming the Prime Minister?
Yeah, but it's
I
not
thank
it.
God Sheppy is not going to call us today.
No, but no, I just was checking because coming down it was economic growth.
Which, by the way, I need to say good morning to Miss Sheila and Mr. Pringles,
Yes, who
visited us
yesterday.
yes, and we had a beautiful moment of prayer. So just know if you visit Minette and Percy, you're gonna get prayed for. Will that cause a rush or no one will
You don't,
come?
you mind, you open up the door,
Yes.
and they start speaking
So
about their miracles and you get the rush.
oh well.
Yes.
But good morning to you, Miss Sheila. It was a pleasure to see you yesterday and to know you made the effort. I hope your knee feels better this morning. It
Feels
certainly
better.
should. Yes, and your trusted companion, Mr. Pringles. That was a good visit. Right. So please don't blame the PM for anything, and
Yes,
you have to
no,
take it back
but I took
because
it back. No, man. It was the
yeah,
Minister
yes,
of
yeah,
Finance and Public Service.
and you know that is a significant thing though because the Prime Minister has taken it hard that people are saying he knew things. He said people complained that he didn't speak quickly enough, but he needed to have the proper information before he could speak. And we that is a good position to take. Don't speak before you have the proper information. And then I think, yeah, to blame him of having special knowledge, which some persons have said outright that when he closed his account, then they're not thinking that he had to liquidate the money now and do something. They think he closed it because he had special knowledge.
You know what's going down.
But those speculations are really fair play.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you can't be. There are some things that are going to be said that people just have to be thick-skinned and ride it through.
You know what the truth is. But
When you know what the truth is, you just let the speculation run, and the truth will come out. Just make sure that you are bringing out the truth in a timely and a responsible way. Yesterday, I was saying that there are some matters that are not to be spoken of on the political campaign trail because then it's going to look like bad mind.
Hey! Yes.
And
Then it becomes
one-upmanship. You need to deal with them in the proper forum, in the proper way. And that's just lessons that we need to learn as Jamaicans. So we're not speaking out of turn and shooting ourselves in the foot.
No.
Yeah. So the FSC is seeking to impose some control over the situation, control which, if they had kept to their schedule, their legal reform schedule, they wouldn't have to fight so hard for it because there would have been the legislation in place. The Prime Minister made an important statement. The government will not socialize any debt. We will not socialize the failure of our banks. They need to be prudential and protect their customers, said Holness. Were we to do that, it would send a bad signal to the banks and the investment houses that they can be negligent and expect the coverage of their negligence. That took us into a crisis, which took us decades to get out of and made the entire country poor, he said. Now, coming out of the statement, we should expect that the government is resisting tooth and nail to honor any ancient indemnity that Sagicor Bank were to bring up with relation to
So we're throwing that
Mr.
into the
YPC.
mix.
Yes,
Throwing
we
that
are.
into the mix,
We are. Because he says that banks, investment houses should be prudent and they can't be negligent and expect coverage of their negligence. Likewise, I'm saying the government should be prudent and not be negligent. You know that there's a 30-year-old indemnity out there and there's no system in place to track it. Tell us what obtains with regards to that indemnity. Sagicor is making sure that it is announcing to the world that it is in fine shape and that there's, no shock coming for its shareholders, customers, whatever. Yet there is a massive judgment that has been delivered against them.
Much it worth again?
Some people have said it's about 22 billion. This SSL something is 3 billion or maybe
It's more than that.
more.
That was just you saying alone.
No, you're saying they say it's 2.
Oh, so there's another billion that
Yeah,
they
man.
need to find.
Yeah, and it who knows? The math might still be coming in, but it's nowhere near 20.
Okay. and the joke, man, you see, a lot of our millennials, and generations, they are finding this funny because circulating social media and things, somebody sends out their pay.
Oh yes,
their
they
pay
mentioned that
slip
yesterday.
and they said, look, you need to check to see that there's not a line item on your pay slip that says Usain Bolt
Your
contribution
contribution.
to Usain Bolt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I raised the YPC in judgment because it's coming. And Sagicor is announcing that they're in the clear where it's concerned
We can't be in the
because
clear.
there is an indemnity offered to them by the government of Jamaica, some 30-year-old indemnity that would push the debt to the citizens, taxpayers,
People of Jamaica.
people of Jamaica. So I hope when Mr. Holness says that there should be prudence and that the taxpayer will not be hit by these kinds of expenses, I hope he is putting his people to work on addressing the validity, enforceability of the 30-year-old. I'm calling it 30-year-old. Is it indemnity? Anyway, I
No,
make
but
that
it's
point.
important. It's important that you say that, and then in terms of the government resisting it, that they don't put somebody who just leave law school to go and work it out, but put their most seasoned
Yes,
seasoned
yes,
persons to
yes.
go and work on it. And I'm very sure that thing. Well,
I, I want you to anoint me. I want you to anoint me. Anoint me. Anoint me. So
You're
I'm
watching
watching
that?
breaking news.
Breaking news.
And yes, nationwide radio has covered a story. They say the House of Representatives has passed legislation granting a reprieve to motorists who pay off their outstanding traffic tickets before the end of January. What does that mean?
I'm trying to
The
understand what that-
government is falling in little pieces. They might end up having to deal with the whole thing. You know why? The chaos that it is bringing
But
into
the chaos
the
has happened
system.
already because
And it's going to get worse.
remember the lady said it, the court administration. She pointed out and she said that people are saying, me have a ticket, me go fi pay, me can't pay, they send me away. But you said that from last year, because you have knowledge of the system. And he said, stop the foolishness, stop all harden. That's what we said. Stop holding harden because it's going to come back to haunt you. And
Yeah,
you
you
see,
end
let
up-
me tell you, a lot of things are coming together. This is what's happening now. Remember, we have elections that are due by the end of February, municipal elections into early March. So there's an election that is coming up.
I love it how you're saying that.
There's an election that is coming up. No, man, no, they can't put it off any further.
Yeah.
They can't put it off any further and they can't kick it along the road. No, man. The people of Jamaica are going to protest. Yeah, but no, they pushed it back because it was due and they said, okay, because of COVID, we go and put it back. But COVID was just they say that use something as bypass. That is not the real issue. So now,
They weren't as ready as they are now.
No, but
then SSL come and cripple the deal.
I know them have this hanging over there, this traffic ticket. It's not
And
a
the
joke
traffic,
thing,
no.
It is saying to us, they're in a bad position because the polls were out there when it was coming and the COVID thing did mess them up bad. Because after that time, remember when COVID started, it was big PR for everybody. Making announcements. And then when people start saying, no, we are not going to take this thing that half of they have not given us the test to say that this works out. And now, this what happened. It has backfired. So once upon a time, every day, PM would be there talking. Then after a time, he and the minister of health take with themselves. Them take with themselves over time.
Well, we did ask them to exit.
Yeah, take with themselves. Allow the people of the technical know how to deal with it and see what is happening now. So them have SSL, and because both involved, and everybody in Jamaica, and everybody in the diaspora, and everybody in Love Bowl.
All eyes are on
it.
Jamaica.
And it coming back to that. And them have the traffic ticket business, which affect almost every Jamaican. So
All
yeah,
right, Percy, you're depressing me now.
and then the
You're
dirty
depressing me.
hospitals.
Ooh, it's too much.
Yes. And you
It's too
know
much.
what is the root of it? It's not money. It starts with money. Money comes out of bad heart, you know.
Bad heart. Yeah.
Bad heart. Because God has said to them, all right, look go down. We know what is at the end. But if you don't turn and change and repent, this is what your faith going to be.
You remind me of something I wanted to share with you this morning. As we had been talking about, engaging with the 7 expressions of the Spirit of God in order to work our way through these things, because God said, not by might or by power, it is by my Spirit. And yours truly has gone on to interpret that to mean men and women who are seeking to effect change need to engage these varied expressions of the Spirit of God
The 7
in
spirits
order
of God, they
to,
call it.
yes, and we know what the Spirit, what it is. So last night, I looked back to say, all right, so you know that it is from Isaiah chapter 11,
Yes, 1 to 3.
1 to 3.
But you know it's present in
Remember Branch
Revelation.
always
So
called us? What happened to Branch?
yeah.
Right. When the Spirit of the Lord rests upon you, there are some manifestations that represent its presence. And we went through them: wisdom, understanding, counsel, the might of God, knowledge of God, fear of God, righteousness. But it begins to tell you now how it's going to influence your behavior. And that's what I found just really on point. You will not judge by the sight of your eyes, you won't judge by appearances.
But not that we say all of the time.
You will look deeper into things to find the true justice of a situation. You won't decide by the hearing of your ears. Of course, you know that. What that means. Right away. It is always about discernment and getting to truth and having the right heart.
Having right heart.
But
having
with
good heart.
righteousness, you will judge the poor. You will decide with equity for the meek of the earth, the poor of the earth. Everything, is about how you treat with, not how you treat with the able-bodied and the wealthy and the ones at the top of the pile.
What
It's
is good
how you
religion about
treat-
the vulnerable and
It's
the
how you
weak,
treat the vulnerable.
dispossessed?
Yeah. And it continues. It continues. Because it says too that when now you engage the might of God, and you are going to be that executing hand of judgment, bringing back balance, settling scores then between those who have been abused and those who carried out the abuse.
My sister.
So the truth of the matter is, the Prime Minister really should not be saying that people who are victims will get no help from government. He should be saying the very opposite. Because victims need the might of the state
to help them
overcome. So when you hear about the FinSAC people who are still homeless and suffering, it is not supposed to be. I do not believe that any of the dispossessed bank owners and so on are homeless and suffering, but many of the victims are.
True.
So I looked at it and I said, it's
because this is where somebody said it, I think Enlightened said it yesterday as we come up to our 8 o'clock. He was saying, we're talking about the Spirit. The Spirit of God in your life must have a physical manifestation
in your behavior or you live with people. Yeah.
That's why I tell people all the time, no, come talk to me about Spirit if I don't see it in your behavior.
Absolutely.
So when some people spooky, let me say, but all right, let me show you deal with your brother. How do you love? How do you treat people?
Yep.
That's what it's about.
Yes, because those 7 expressions are visibly manifested in the life of men and women.
Every single day.
Yeah. It's not about man touch you further and you drop to the ground. That's not spirit. That's just power. Really. That's just one expression, the power of God being manifested. Time to break, sir. We'll take our break.
Best 100 FM is the authentic voice of Jamaica, promoting your prosperity with better vibes and better music. Let us promote your goods and services for you. Advertise with us. For more information, call our office at 876 276 8935. That's 276 8935. Best 100 FM is the authentic voice of Jamaica, promoting your prosperity with better vibes and better music. Let us promote your goods and services for you. Advertise with us. For more information, call our office at 876 276 8935. That's 276 8935.
Welcome back. There's an issue that I want to touch on with you, Percy, even as we speak about how engaging the various expressions of the Spirit of God gives us the right platform from which to rebuild. And you were very passionately stating that you tell people who speak to you of the Spirit that unless you see it at work in their lives, they are very poor advocates. I say the same thing too, so that resonates well with me. We're going through the paper. You started a litany of the various things happening now that could affect our election calendar. Now, government, I think when government begins to prefer itself over the people, it's time for a change.
Yeah, when we think that what we do is more important than what will cause for the people to prosper, to feel good. Right?
Or even what the law requires, because when it comes down to the election timetable, we know that it is set by law. That is an important element of democracy. It is the single most important pillar in maintaining a democracy is conducting free and fair elections
at the appropriate
time, at the agreed and expected time. You can have, you can have events that cause you to shift the calendar. For example, a pandemic, which placed the public health at risk. But
True.
please bear in mind that this administration
Hmm?
took their new mandate.
2 years ago.
So, yeah, during the pandemic.
Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. That is
Something just
true.
came right into my throat.
That is so true. Then the man, yeah, and people are saying, well, I'm not calling election in a
Yeah,
pandemic.
it was during the pandemic. So, um, yeah, it's why I said the government should never prefer itself over the interest of the people. At the time when the election was called in 2020, it was 2020? Yeah, when election was called in 2020, persons were nervous about how the campaigning would go and this, that, and the other, and so on and so forth. But it was considered important for the health of our democracy that we could hold those elections. When the local government elections were due, the pandemic became a good reason to defer it, postpone it.
Although most of the effects of the pandemic had passed and everybody was back to their old selves.
Yeah. But in the way of things, we know that there is a calculation and an assessment that is made as to whether it's a good time. And one of the privileges of government is you get to set the actual date. So right now, it's anybody's guess, but we are assuming that because the rule of law still have some relevance in this country, that the constitutionally due local government elections will actually take place.
Yes.
But you are going through all of the
Well, it's not good for the government.
all of the cons. What's against it? But let's see where it goes. Because if we see our government constantly putting its own interests, its own
Agenda.
it's clinging to power.
Not good.
That is never a good sign. It's you're on your way to a dictatorship, or some authoritarian style government.
But some people have alleged already.
We're already there.
Even in terms of some of the things they are dealing with the SOEs and
Yeah.
the use of it, and people saying, we can do something better.
And if you study what happened in other countries that
Same.
drift into authoritarian rule or dictatorial rule,
Same
there's
thing.
a pattern.
There's a pattern,
It's
yeah.
a path. First, you arm up yourself and you get more military or police powers under your belt. Now we see they are concentrating power, control into very few hands. BOJ, FSC now becoming one.
And that's something we need to talk about. I would love for somebody who understands
Political ombudsman and electoral office of Jamaica become one.
Yes, because one man never liked it and was on a personal campaign because they would talk against him and his behavior.
Office of the Contractor General and Integrity Commission have become one. You can just look to see where these power is being concentrated till you'll be down to like a core that you can hold that together and just continue running the country under some state of emergency, some contrived state of emergency.
As people are saying now that the state of emergency, the governor general needed to have a just reason to sign what he's signing based on what the police chief
it must fit within the
people are saying, what
Constitution.
has changed? What really has changed?
Nothing has changed.
And so
we know we're on our way
we're
there.
on a slippery.
We're on a very slippery
slippery
slope. One good shower of rain and we slide right downhill. But there is God, and there are people advocating for otherwise. I'm disturbed by what the Rio Cobra fisher folk are saying concerning the compensation they got for the fish kill. All right. And I did some calculation. That's what you saw me doing. So you know what happened with them, and the government drew down on the environmental bond, which Windalco has to keep in place. That bond would be would typically be drawn on to cover the cost of restoring harmony then to the environment where damage has occurred by reason of their own action. And we were told when the fish, the bodies were on the float on top of the water,
yeah.
we were told that the government had drawn on the bond. After some time now,
Been paid.
the fisher folk who were affected. Now, these are the people who live there whose livelihoods were directly affected. This is not any kind of hypothetical. These are real people who submitted their claims. 120 checks, each valued at just over $131,000, were distributed. The fisher folk are not pleased. It represents roughly 28%. 28% of their claim. I have to pick from Mark Golding now. Mark Golding apparently did the calculation, and he's saying the fisher folk suffered the biggest reduction in percentage terms. They are getting only 28%, while NEPA, a government agency, and National Water Commission get 40% of the total allocation.
But
So NEPA and the NIC are getting 100%, along with NCC, who's getting 40% of the allocation.
so who worked out that? That's what I'm trying to understand. Who worked out?
The government
get
work
what?
out who get what, because they call on the bond, they
Yeah,
have the money
yeah,
in
but
their
if they-
custody,
but
and they work out how they're going to settle the claims. They settle themselves first, and that's why I said a government that puts itself above the people is not
Because-
for the people.
Because if the people, the common man who was
yeah.
affected, and NWC and NEPA, why would they? They're government agencies. They're our agencies, but the man in
The man who is living
under-
in the environment and didn't work, had to look after family. Maybe him JPS bill alone take up that $131,000. This is the kind of thing that comes out which smacks of abuse
of power.
of power. Yes. So there is someone, president of the Friends of the Rio Cobre, Mr. Gordon, Kestenord Gordon, has encouraged the fisher folk to accept the initial payout while he seeks redress for full compensation in the courts. Now hear this. That Windalco bond is $771,000 US dollars. I don't even know how they arrive at that, because I assume you would look at, in setting the bond, you would look at how many people in the area and what it might involve in if you had to compensate them in the event of some loss, what it would require to restore the environment in terms of the money you spend removing contaminants from the water, replanting if you need to replant, whatever it is you need to do in those areas. You look at the cost of it. And there must be some punitive element as well, because it must be sufficient money that the company should be thinking, I don't want to lose that money. So as it keeps me honest in my dealings. But so they have 771,000 US as the bond. That converts to roughly 118 million Jamaican dollars. You going to tell me now that you couldn't give the Jamaican fisher folk $500,000 each, which would have only come to like 60 million? And you wouldn't be looking now to save money for Windalco, who messed up in the first instance. You should be pulling from that bond every dime that you need.
And the question is, who are the persons in government who
make those
the kind of decisions?
That
Because the
disrespect
government
the Jamaican
is in a
people.
better position to deal with the fallout versus the fishermen. And so again,
Heartless, man.
what is the problem with this? Is it technocrats? Is it?
Well, is Jamaican people that look like me and you sitting in there making decisions?
I'm wondering, did they consider that, or it's just because of them? Because I don't like to do these things,
I feel like someone was there saying 131,000 are country people.
And then it don't mean nothing to them.
No mean nothing to them. I plenty money
Plenty
this.
money that. Yeah, because and some of the times we have to just be careful of our thinking.
May God punish the wicked.
If we put ourselves the
stand in their shoes
who are making these determinations, ask yourself the question: if you were the person who are affected, your livelihood was affected, and there's this money, and there's government, NEPA and NWC are government on one side, and the people are on one side, who would you want to favor? Because NEPA and NWC can deal with their things, but the man and woman in the street who has been affected, what's they going to do?
National Irrigation Commission and NEPA got their full money. NWC got 40%, and the fisher folk 28% of what they claim. Man, that's just not right.
And
I thought I'd comment on it because
it continues to beg the question, Some of the times because the politician, right?
Yes.
I say I him. And me know say no, me can knock on wood and say that I think it's NEPA.
Well, it's NEPA would be the one to
Yeah, but where NEPA fall? NEPA fall under where does NEPA fall? But I'm sure no politician in terms of set policy would have said, this is how you must do it. The people in the ministry, the people who work in the different organizations.
Come, let us educate Big Truck. Big Truck is asking a question. He said, how do we define who's a fisher folk? Were they registered with the government? Yes, there's a system of registration. Yeah. So even me could leave and come to Jamaica and say I'm a fisherman? No.
They know the fisher folk are Big Truck.
Yes, and collect taxpayers' money. It would not be taxpayers' money. This is the bond that Windalco puts up to cover environmental disasters caused by, their own negligence.
Yeah. But what it was, if we understand how it worked, it was the residual or the refuse from the plant that was discharged,
released.
Whether from pipe open or not, that was discharged in the real COVID. And if you know where that plant is, it's very possible because when you're driving, when you are turning those places, the plant is right there. And it is pretty close to where it's a major agricultural area there, And I remember when you used to pass Mount Ross, you could look and see the mud lakes. And people, let me tell you, these mud lakes, when they close them, they're going to create a major problem. Unless somebody was saying to me, to restore where the mud lakes are closed properly, they have estimated it's about $20 million to fix
for
each one of them.
And they have a bond of $771,000. There are people who lost more than that in SSL.
Yeah.
Couldn't resist
as we talk about Windalco, Windalco is the one that is in your town. What about what is happening at Jamalco? What is happening? We're not hearing anything. We know that the markets are down
for aluminium.
And what is happening? What is happening, Mr. Finance Minister? What is happening, Mr. Prime? What is happening down at Jamalco? We know they are the major explosion and the plant had to close down where they had to rehabilitate their power station. Yeah. It's back up now, but what is happening? Is it making sense to government? Is it making sense to the international persons who are there? Is it being profitable? What is happening there?
Well,
you're not hearing anything.
All right. Well, you know that I have drawn a line through the extractive industry.
Yes, I know. But what is happening? It is still there. As somebody said, they were the 80 million US. Remember you saw that thing?
Oh, yes. That's what they contribute to the economy.
That one there. But so what is happening?
So they really need to officiate. Are you looking for a job to officiate the funeral?
Of what?
Jamalco.
No. Yeah.
So they need to,
we need to
perform the final rites and allow the country to move forward.
Because people have been contending that we need to move away from the extractive industries because over time it's done its time. But what are we doing now? What are we seeking to replace it with? That is the question that government and policymakers need to know strategically. Say to the people of Jamaica, and somebody said, take yourself out of Lion's Mouth at some point in time. What do you think? It's now time, on about time for 8:30.
Oh,
Break,
yeah.
yes.
You, I think we should get out get some information on what's happening in the extractive industries overall,
Yeah.
and have an informed discussion on it. Yeah, because even as we are seeking to restore confidence in the financial sector, the plans that we have for moving the country forward based on, what developments, what strategy we're pursuing for growth. Jamaicans need to understand it and buy into it, and and be hopeful, be more hopeful about the future. There is a lot to focus on, but the information needs to be structured and delivered, and conversations held in public spaces that can allow us to move as a team, not just one or two people who know something and run after it while the rest of us are struggling to find our sea legs. Time for the 8:30 break. Good. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're going into the last segment. Not last segment exactly, but as we wrap up some of the things we've been talking about, you were looking at the extractive industry transparency. What is it? Index? And you said no, Jamaica. Jamaica is not there, although Jamaica has had a very mature industry
For many years.
many years before independence. And you're wondering why. And my theory is that typically Jamaica don't like to put out information because now they realize that Jamaicans are having access to the information posted globally. We're reading it and coming back to ask questions.
Yeah, because I
We
find
have
this fascinating. Right? To
Jamaican
Norway,
government, regardless of who is heading the administration, don't like questions.
yeah, because I'm seeing in the Caribbean where you have Mexico. No, Mexico is not Caribbean, but Suriname, Guyana is on it. Um, Honduras, all those places. Because when we spoke up, we're talking about extractive in Trinidad and Tobago is on it. So we're talking about extractive industries and what is the future? How are we going? That's the question we're saying,
Yeah.
asking about what's happening at Jamalco, because of it's a segue out of what has happened with Dalco and
The fish kill.
the fish kill, So, wow, my lord, my lord, my lord. It's a very comprehensive website still, because it looks at what they're doing,
But still,
production, revenue, and so on.
even if we're not contributing to it, like we're not members, those of us who take an interest in global trends can look at it and see what's happening elsewhere and use some of what we learned there to inform the decisions that we take at home. So
Yeah.
the fact that we're not putting any information on it doesn't mean that we can't get great value from visiting it. When you look at it, what are you seeing as a trend? Are you looking at it that way, or are you just scrolling through it?
I was just scrolling through it. It's a global standard for what is it? Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative is a global standard for the good governance of oil, gas, and mineral resources. It seeks to address the key governance issues in the extractive 2003 in Oslo, Norway, and it has 57 countries that are a part of it. So when you spoke extractive, I'm saying, okay, let's look what is happening internationally in terms of what people are saying, because you have indicated that we need to take a serious and a second look at extractive industry. Indeed, you decided you close it down.
Yes, in the spiritual realm, I've shut it down.
You close it down. But,
So you'll soon see it catching on in
there.
Jamaica. Yeah. Yesterday I was speaking with someone who said that he believes that the prime minister is doing his best. And I found myself agreeing. Because I know when someone is putting out all that they can,
They know how to do.
all that they know how to do. And I know when they've reached their limit, they're not hiding or holding back anything. And I sometimes see genuine frustration on our prime minister's face. The Apostle Paul said that followers or disciples should make it a joy for their leaders to represent them. You remember? And I often think that, was it Bruce Golding who said that Jamaicans are ungovernable?
Yeah.
I do not think Jamaicans make it a joy for anybody to lead them. In my mind, I see like somebody trying to herd chickens.
Okay.
As soon as you get them in a group, one fly off to the side and fly off to
I'm
the
going to look for the chicken.
flutter.
For the chicken there.
Yes, it's not even like herding sheep. It's like a flock
Chickens.
of poultry, the wild type.
That's why they bring them in as soon as they catch them.
The one go.
No, as soon
What
as
if I
they
have to
catch
cut
it,
off the neck and put them in the stew pot?
probably
Oh
that's how
dear.
they.
But and that came to mind because I see here, I see a comment that the Prime Minister made recently. I want us to just meditate on it a bit. There was a launch of a German ship repair
I saw that.
business
I was gonna
on that.
$37 million.
Yes. And at that launch, the Prime Minister is reported to say having said, is reported as having said he was lamenting the inefficiencies of the public sector. Let me tell you, let me quote what he said, and we need to think about it. When even the Prime Minister, who has managed to put so many ministries in his office because he's trying to monitor and ensure a certain level of performance, he was lamenting that it took 20 years from conception to fruition to have a business of that type established in that location. It's somewhere on the road to the airport.
Yeah, it is. I know the
Right.
location too. Yeah. The German ship repair.
Jamaica Limited.
Yes.
Right. So he was lamenting that it took 20 years, and he admitted that the country continues to pay dearly for the ineffectiveness of the public sector. In fact, tardiness is so well entrenched in the public sector that it is now the acceptable standard, he said. Risk taking, moving fast is almost a bad word in the civil service, but we pay for it, but we pay a price for it in that everything else moves slowly. And those who have fed you this narrative for years and fed your own thinking for years have done us a great disservice. So we don't trust ourselves to do anything. And the process of getting projects done is very combative, and we pay the price. In fact, I don't know when they're going to get another carousel. And that one is on his, lies at his doorstep. But I just imagine that for a prime minister the prime minister can extract the highest level of performance from anybody in his country. It's the prime minister. If he says, I need this tomorrow morning, you stay up all night. Or so it should be. And for him to come to the conclusion that tardiness is now the acceptable standard. And this is not when he was prime minister for 2 months. Who was prime minister for 2 months? Was it him?
That's him.
This is not a 2-month prime minister talking. This man now has settled into the chair, knows the ins and outs of it, knows the shortcuts if those exist, and he can be saying, well, now I can look back at it and tell you that tardiness, a lack of commercial awareness, not realizing that, those are my words. He didn't call it commercial awareness, but he says risk taking and moving fast are bad words to our civil service.
I can understand
Isn't that
risk-taking.
That must be frustrating?
It is frustrating, but and in defense of civil servants some of the times, you have related your story, and we can't talk about them stories they're online. You have to just talk about it because Bush now have no ears and that kind of a thing. But I have known where, and I've seen it, it's about how you approach people, about building relationships, and a shift of mindset. So I can agree with him in terms of people's mindsets need to be changed in the civil service. But my mom was a civil servant for years, and years. That's all I've known my mom to do before she retired. But no one have interacted with people well after, and what they said of her, very professional, very efficient, wanting to get the job done. And she was in tax collection, but she never had those kind of issues. And what you'd say is how you treat with people, how you treat with people, how important what you're doing to you, your level of respect for your job, love for your job. And she get it done. If you want something to them, say, go talk to Miss Palmer. People come up on situation, it's like, oh, talk to Miss Palmer and she sorted it out. And what I learned from her was in terms of how she interacted and treated people and recognized that as a civil servant, she was a servant of the people, not the other way around.
Yeah.
And so you have to look.
Anyway, most citizens don't really want her to be efficient at tax collecting. you're glorifying the wrong in of this.
No, but
She can be as
no,
slow as she
just,
wants to be in collecting tax.
no, but that is just the attitudes and her how she approached it.
Yeah.
And then the other thing too.
But that
It
seems to
depends-
have come more out of her character than out of any institutional attitude or knowledge or training or any or whatever.
No, but those things helped her. But another thing that comes, a lot of civil servants are very wary of politicians. Very wary of
What does
politicians.
that have to do with their inefficiency?
No. Because
That's how they express their weariness. Move slow.
move slow like a politician will tell you go
until
do
you
this.
vote him out.
No, but in the sense that a politician will come and say you must do this, and it is not according to the procedures,
Yeah.
the stated thing.
So
And
how about rather than moving slow, you just let the man know that he's out of line?
outer line art, and what they do, this is their strategy. Put it in writing.
Yeah, that don't
And so
take
therefore
long.
it don't happen at all.
Yeah.
Because a lot of politicians have ulterior motives in getting stuff done.
What a noisy morning. I can hardly hear myself.
No, you understand what I'm saying? So I can understand that, but they're looking and saying, make sure heart
Yeah.
right, what you're doing, what you're seeking to do. Is there any...
But let me tell you, that's not what the Prime Minister is talking about. The Prime Minister continued by saying, our public bureaucracy is such that, again, a kind of narrative has been fed in the mind of the public about our inefficiency and corruption. Now he's talking about what you were talking about.
Yeah, the corruption, yeah. Which
Yeah.
is a major thing.
About our inefficiency and corruption and all kinds of things. What it has done, it has crippled the civil service. It has crippled the public bureaucracy. No one wants to move faster than they should. No one is being an entrepreneur, meaning someone in an organization who takes risks to get things done. The Prime Minister said that a lot of negative things can happen in the 2-decade time frame from conception to the delivery timeline for projects. Well, I was with him until it started to sound like he was blaming the public. It's our fault why the public sector is inefficient, slow. It's because we think they're corrupt. It's because we don't have the right belief about their capabilities. So
Go back to the case that you highlighted yesterday.
Which one was that?
The Integrity Commission and Hales. You remember when you were reading
oh
it?
yes, the
that is-
allegations against him
Yes,
that he
the
tried to bully
allega-
them and push
Yeah.
them into
And-
but
and-
this is one public sector member pushing another public sector member because he was he was a public officer at the time.
He was? I thought he wasn't thing there. He was
Remember?
an MP.
No, not MP. You remember there are many other public official positions you can occupy other than member of parliament.
Because my reading of it, he was using his power as MP of East Hanover then to push his project. That's what I got from it.
Well, the complaints had two legs. There was one which, yes, but and he was not always.
You know that, but I think it was when he was MP that, isn't it? We need to just double check.
Well,
But that's what I'm saying. So the whole narrative of corruption, and if it's clean and above the board, then we work. If it is not, then say, Mr. Minister, put it in writing. Because when the fallout comes, you're not going to take it, so we're not going to take it either.
let me share the PM's new narrative.
Okay.
The new narrative must be, how do we comply with rules and get things done efficiently? That is the new public sector that we're trying to build. And we have started and recognized the problem. And a lot of it has to do not just with the rules that we have put in place, but the mindset and culture, Holness said. It is a sentiment that has also been shared recently by leaders in both the private and the public sector. And they go on to quote Minister Malahoo Fort admitting at the inaugural National Security Advisor Security Seminar that the entrenched culture whereby the public sector employees work at their own pace is seriously undermining the public sector reform process. This, she admitted, is hurting the government's effort to pass laws that are critical to reining in the murder rate, which so nonsense. Laws that are going to rein in murder rate.
You know, she said something wrong with that. You know,
something
the narrative
very wrong with her.
You know, no, I'm just saying in terms of the narrative, are you seriously trying to go to the root causes of why are we murdering one another as Jamaicans and why we're doing this? Or is it because of is it because of the PR and the bad press it is giving? You see what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. Because I've interacted with a lot of public sector civil servants and so on. We probably need to go invite Mr. Grant to come one of these times. You blame them because some of the time you people come in as politicians and they want to leave their legacy.
This is, the Prime Minister was talking about some systemic issues that cause things to be inefficient. Minister Malahoo Fort seems to be, here's what she says: there are many big challenges, but it appears as if the public sector is not culturized into, they make up all these words. I don't know how the cleaner even figure out how to spell it. This one is CULTURISED.
I'm quoting her verbatim.
And they just do it phonetically. It's not culturized into meeting deadlines. That's her problem. They're not meeting deadlines. She wants it by today, she'd get it next week.
That is why, let's backtrack. Like the drafting of bills. You have a parliamentary draft person, you probably know her. And the other person related to it. So you go, all right, we need to fix this problem. The politician comes up with a very bright idea. He thinks it is the best idea since sliced bread. They come with it. He wants his legacy to say that I put that piece of legislation through. But then he doesn't take into consideration that if you put in that law, you have to take into consideration the other laws that are there. Help me no man, you're a lawyer. Help me man. So
mind your manners with that. Not a lawyer.
Yes, true. You're training the law. You're training the law. And so you pushing that, but then that is why you have civil servants to say, but dear minister, if you do this, you're going to have to change that and that. So I have come out and I've made a pronouncement. In 3 months' time, we'll have this law moving through the house and so on, and make it on public thing. Without talking to the people who are going to make it happen, and then you blame them because the idea. Is that what we're talking about?
One never knows with Miss Malahoo Fort.
Yeah, but I'm just talking in general. We're talking about the
that
principle.
Could be one manifestation of it.
Yeah.
You can't, it makes no sense to say that we are not passing we're not passing laws urgently needed because people don't respect timelines. That's so much nonsense that if you can get Road Traffic Amendment Act in and out of the house in 24 hours, do not tell me that you have people who can't keep the timelines.
Because it's the same people
who do it.
Yeah. And then, just to use that as an example, when you have bad legislation, which is what happened with NIDS, that it was thrown out.
Yes. And they did spend a lot of time getting to the timeline.
Yes.
But I only say it because when you are looking at the execution process for any project.
Yeah, project timeline.
And right. The project, making the timelines is just one element of getting the job executed. Meaning you set a stage, it should take 4 weeks, it ends up taking 8 weeks. Or whatever the case might be. The more important, we tend to allow form to overtake substance.
That's what happens a lot of time.
And maybe the Prime Minister was looking at substance in terms of how his public sector performs. He may be looking at substance, meaning their actual output. And Ms. Malahoo Fort was looking at the form. Did it hit my desk at 5 p.m. or, 2 days later? That's the form. For me, that's form. Because getting the thing done is way more important than sometimes even the time frames. You might miss a time frame or a deadline because of reasons that go directly to the quality or the substantive issues. Projects take long from inception to
conceptualize it.
Yeah, from conception to birth. Let's use a familiar language. Projects take long in Jamaica from conception to birth for a variety of reasons. A lot of them have to do with financing. Some of them have to do with availability of raw material or appropriate technology. How long it takes for something to get from point A to point B, where point A is outside of your jurisdiction. Some of it, then you come to where you interact with the public sector in the event that you need government licensing and so on. Time is only one element of how quickly that flows. Sometimes the back office piece of it shows lack of knowledge, lack of systems, lack of personnel. For example, not so long ago, Lowell and I tangled with the Ministry of, is development its name? Economic Development or something like that. We had to drop off a plan at an office somewhere off Halfway Tree Road. Is that road? Halfway Tree Road. So there's a part of the ministry that the super ministry is the PM's ministry.
Located in.
Is on off Halfway Tree Road. And it was just a mystery to me. One thing I liked about it, let me say that.
The mystery.
When you arrive, the reception point downstairs gives no clue who's in the building, what personnel is there. If you were going there with a bag of money to say, I'm going to bribe somebody to get back my paperwork quickly, you keep your money and go have lunch. Because you don't see nobody that you can say, let me engage with this or that one. I think that's good.
True.
But beyond that, I asked for a receipt for the document I dropped off. My only receipt is to take a picture of where it is entered in the book. They don't have a credible process. And why I know now that that's not credible is because when I was trying to track the document later on, no one could tell me where it was. And I said to myself, but that at some point the people could tell me that I never bring it.
True. Them always said that.
I had nothing in my hand.
They don't get a receipt.
They don't give
anything.
a receipt for the document. Then, after the thing had been there for a week now and we're trying to track it, we hear that some people evaluate it at this office. And one lady came on the phone to me and tell me, I am the only person who does this for the whole island. She said, Miss, your document is, when your document is delivered, it joins a queue of other persons who have brought in before you. And I am the only person who reviews them. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm in the final stages of getting some titles extracted. Just imagine I have lots of financial things depending on it.
Yeah.
And I buck up on a lady who says, and she don't tell me that 10 people are before me or 5 or whatever. She just says, I'm the only one who does it for the island. Then it was one thing to track it, and what I discovered is that after the technocrats examine it at that office, it then goes to another place and then up to Jamaica House, because the Prime Minister has to sign off. So they said, the Prime Minister himself has to sign off on all these things that have already gone through the hands of several technocrats. So in that process alone, I lost 2 weeks. But I make the point to say that the Prime Minister himself, maybe he introduced let it come to me as part of his efficiency routine. Some people think him just want to see everything that's happening. But if he introduced that as a part of the routine, he has added 2 weeks.
Oh, you say 2 weeks. And longer than that, for you to track it.
Yeah.
It's longer than 2 weeks.
Who knows? If I had just left it, it probably it would get to me whenever it got to me. But when you get into the public sector, what you realize is that they have systems upon systems upon systems. That all it does is waste time.
And then remember what they did enough to make these executive agencies.
Yes.
Yes, the executive agencies in terms of yeah.
I'm saying hi to Mr. Ligony Club manager. who owes me an interview on camera. In February, and he's promising me February for Valentine's. That's a lover's promise. You can't break it. All right.
But that you make a very important point, because part of the reform of the civil service is to make processes easier, to pay people better, and just make it more efficient and effective. But I must say there is needed a mindset change in terms of how people see their role in government. And another element I am suggesting is the whole thing of trust between civil service and politicians. That you don't believe in trying to do your work and get it done, that there's one-upmanship happening, that you're being used. Because a lot of them, I know, because I talked to a lot of people, and she said the way that we dealt with it.
The lot of people is she.
No, just that instant.
If you say you talk to a lot of people, you should say, and they say.
And they say, right, correct. Yeah, they say. And they said, what we do when we get a call from the minister himself, and we know based on the rules and the protocol that it will get us in trouble, Mr. Minister, or whoever it is that is instructing you, please put it in writing. And that is their way of protecting themselves, because when it is in writing, they can say, it's not me do it. I just got instructions. And people need to have backbone to stand up and say, some people they have the rules. So the people have been in government a long time. That's how we protect ourselves. When somebody come in and them ready to go and anything, you say, you make sure that you get it in writing. So when whatever hits the fan, you are protected and you don't become the fall person for what has happened.
Would you operate in a situation like that? Because I wouldn't.
But in a way, yes and no. We put it in writing if it is above board.
No. So it's because if it is above board, you don't need to tell them to put it in
so
writing.
The question,
it's above board.
And so a lot of times when that comes, people, it's not above board, so they have to protect themselves. There's something wrong with that.
Yeah, but all right. We say there's a change of mindset. I am someone who favors boldness. If someone is telling you to do something and it's wrong, it's against the rules. Maybe they don't know that it's against the rules. So you say, Minister, don't you remember that it's contrary to so-and-so? Or Mr. So-and-so, this is contrary. That would cause a breach of the rule. Has the rule changed? We need to let people know the rule has changed.
Yeah, and tell them the rule has changed. But when you see what has been coming out in terms of corruption, like with Petrojam, the lady lost her work, and all of them things.
I know.
Yeah.
But we have been saying that persons have lost the clear moral compass that
and which is where I was going.
To guide them in making decisions.
This is wrong.
So a lot of persons are thinking that my survival requires me to fall in line, but just cover myself. And that's not right either. We have to get back on track. We passed the 9:04 break. We're taking it now. All right.
Because
it's All right. Welcome back. We're here at the lovely Ligony Club. I have to give a shout out to the managers and the staff here because on Thursdays, they really do take care of us. Occasionally, it's a little noisy, but that just adds some authenticity to the background because, you know, the gardeners are cutting the lawns and sometimes, you know, all kinds of strange noises. But nonetheless, it is a beautiful location from which to do free-flowing Thursdays, and we really do treasure it. So thank you again to the Ligony Club and to JD's Urban Pub. Some of us are still fasting, so I won't talk to you about the delicious food. We still have a few days of fasting to go.
Oh, still about yeah, that's true.
You finished your first leg.
Yeah, the first leg.
The first leg.
Yeah, but you know, as you were just talking about and commenting on what the Prime Minister was lamenting the civil service. It's
The inefficiencies in the civil service.
It's not, to my own mind, just simply there are a lot of variables at play, but I think a very important variable and element is the lack of trust between the politicians and the civil servants. Because remember, civil servants basically there for life. In terms that they don't shift out.
Yes, they lend continuity to government. And it's very important that citizens understand that politicians will come and go, but your technocrats, your permanent secretary, the professionals, the trained managers of this or that in the ministry or in government all together, they bring continuity. So when the minister gone and a new minister is there, they have the job of educating the minister on what's what.
What is what and where we're going and what has happened.
Right. And they're the bridge between me and you, citizen outside here, and new administration. You can always find a familiar face or position that you can relate to.
Yeah.
So we don't want them ever to be so disposable that, you know, they're here today, gone tomorrow. If not, it would be like Groundhog Day, that American movie where every morning you wake up, the same thing happening again. Because every time you arrive at the office is a new person. You have to be saying, all right, I had submitted this application and this one did lose it. And if somebody made an objection, the new person carry you back to the first objection. That's where it gets maddening. So we don't want that. We want civil servants to have security of tenure in their jobs so that they can be your trusty guide from one season to the next. Let me just emphasize that. I'm not one person who's saying you need to have them in some loosey-goosey formation where you can get rid of them each time, then buck them to or make a mistake. It should not be easy for you to dislodge a civil servant. The
And
training they get
it's very
is
important.
then becomes very important.
And that's where that some people have said and suggested if you want training in a lot of things, the civil service is the place to go. But one of the points I want also
So you were talking about trust. You were
change
saying
the trust
so
in
these people who have a stable, secure, working environment or contract or whatever, they now are the ones who have to be running interference between the public and the political
directorate.
Yes. Are you saying there's little trust
Yeah,
between
the directorate.
so between the directorate and the civil servant, between the public and the civil servant,
yeah.
and between the public and the politician?
So one of the things
That's
that
that
would go
cocktail for disaster.
yes, so one of the things we really need to focus on, because we are a low trust deficit society, meaning we don't trust nobody. We never trust ourselves, if you think about it. So we really need to do, and that is something that comes out of the psychological, or you'd say out of the spirit, that you can't see it, but you see the manifestation in terms of behavior of individuals. So
But
that,
can I tell you what breaks that? As someone who has spent some time in doing regulatory law and policy, what breaks that is the system. If you
Okay.
don't trust the personality,
the system
is what needs to be robust and clear. So if the person does what the system dictates is necessary,
you're
you
good
don't-
to go.
You're good to go.
Yeah.
So suppose in applying for some permits, you just had to fill out your form, submit it online. You don't have to interact with nobody. They have they have the system is set so that if you have answered correctly, scored on these various points,
You just pay
you
money.
move to the next stage, you pay your money, and you're done. So as many administrative tasks that we can automate and just put it into a context where no human
time,
being need to be exercising discretion. You know, when you stand up at the window and them a look at you like, yes, no. Should I let him in?
You understand?
The less of that you have,
The better it is.
the better it is. And then what you do is do your consultation on what systems work,
Get
make
best
the investment,
practices.
develop your best practices, and that's it.
Yeah, because where it's not dependent on things. So like if you have something that says if everything is correct, nothing is flagged, you pay your money, and in 3 to 4 days you get back the thing, good. That you don't have to be going down there and raising
Yes.
Cain and losing your cool and telling people about every piece of fabric that them is made up of. You know, to get, because some of the times you go in and you say, you have said the system is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've done everything. Why is it that I can't get the thing? And if I don't behave bad, like you go into the bank some of the time, they say, hold on. What happened? It's when you start
Make
risking,
noise. That
the manager
Yeah.
come out and say, everybody.
And that's really just to preserve appearances.
Yeah.
Because if you stood there quietly and waited, you would wait until you expire.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of, and right now, in this technological age, we can use technology to perform better in some of those areas. But coming out of this sort of kind of post-colonial system, we're still very invested in wanting to make, yes, you still want to make decisions about who should move forward or stay put. So we don't want to take the human element out of it. We constantly want to put somebody there to determine if it should go left or right.
You see, so therefore, wow, you have just hit the nail on the head. When you said people believe we don't want to move away from the system, that you can move forward in Jamaica because everybody it's a level playing field, and it must not be dependent on who I know.
On,
If I want to make an investment and I have my money and it is clean money, me not have to know you.
You don't have to know a soul.
You don't have to know me. And
fill out your form, go through the thing. Yeah.
You
and
know,
it's done.
yeah.
Instead, in Jamaica, somebody have to be looking at whether you should be going forward.
You can imagine that.
And that's a part of the post-colonial.
And that is a major part of the
yeah,
problem.
yeah.
One of the other things that is happening is,
Need to see them first because they might sound white, but when you meet them, they're black.
yes.
I remember someone giving me a story about that, you know. He called from London to
Yes.
conduct some business. Got a very good reception on the phone because, you know, he sound white.
Yes.
And he was saying he sound white. And it's something he was trying to do that involved the son of a minister from an African nation. So the son had access to the father's private aircraft. So I'm going to say they borrowed the plane. And so, you know, it would have been landing right, request to land and whatnot. So, you know, they're coming by a private plane. So the reception was lined up to meet them at the airport. He said when they stepped off the plane and saw the Jamaican official waiting to greet them, he said he could see the man's face fall when he realized that two black people. I tried to convince him otherwise because I actually happened to know the person who he said came to meet them.
Who face fall.
Right. And I said, no, if that man's face fall, it's not because he had a problem striking a deal with two black people. I think he would be saying, oh boy, I won't be able to get this through the door.
Yeah, because he knows
because he knows where he has to go with it. So he said, the guy said, he whispered to his partner, he said, you know, this is not going to happen. And his friend was asking him why. And he said, well, wait and see. They didn't know we were black. Well, suffice it to say, the deal never happened. But, boy, I don't know. I was defending the integrity of the man who showed up to receive them. But he's right in the end. When we were doing carousel, you know how much places we go and people ask us if we don't have no white, somebody who can be in the front.
In modern day Jamaica,
modern day Jamaica, right here, so people say you need somebody who, like, only just go on forward and say, no, the multi-million-dollar US project. Who can believe that? When I stood in court, I could see the incredulity on the faces of many around me that I was standing up as someone who had an investment in this big proposition. It's like, but you don't realize something I go against digital and cable and wireless. I'm not sure. Almost every banker who we had a conversation with about what we're doing, I weren't borrowing money, you know. But I remember trying to open a bank account for something else. And they asked some questions about my involvement with Carousel. And I was trying to make the connection between the two. What it was, though, is that the bank was concerned that Carousel being in such high disfavor with government, anybody connected to Carousel opening a bank account is going to be flagged as some kind of high-risk individual. That's the size of Jamaica. So anyway, we were talking about what the Carousel project really envisaged, and just talking about what we're trying to do. And the person asked they asked a question about how would we counteract a competitive response from the incumbent, from Digicel and Flow.
Mm-hmm.
And basically they were saying, it's just not even possible that a group of Jamaicans could seek to compete against these
But they never
giants.
given that chance. That's the point. So the Prime Minister is talking about that.
Yeah, bigger issues.
It's bigger issues.
I would have said to him then, okay, we started working on the Carousel Symbiote. That proposal, we started working on it in 2012.
Wow.
When it comes back on stream, I am going to count from 2012. So from 12 to 23,
11 years.
11 years.
That's what I'm telling you.
11 years. I would include the time when we came to the table and were chased and bullied and abused. I have to say that's a part of my timeline in bringing my idea to reality. Agreed?
Yeah, it must be. So the question is, so Mr. Prime Minister, I don't think you fully understand the real issues that are at play.
It's not about keeping to timeline.
no.
It's not about being tardy in carrying out duties. It's way deeper than that.
And you know, what sparked your conversation is this 37 million US dollar investment in the ship thing. Do you know they are not original child of this idea? Because this gentleman has died.
So to that man, it never came.
It never came, but he
Yes,
brought, and I remember it was,
ancestors would say it never happened.
No, but he was in a tiffy because he had this wonderful proposal and he lost it. And it was all over the place. And my brother see that it went missing from his car. And I remember talking to him and he explained to me, this is what I'm going to be doing here.
Yes.
It's now passed on, and I'm saying, okay, all right. So now to see it becomes fruition, and this poor gentleman has that black Anto has passed on. I said, Father, we need a major release in this country. Because, Mr. Prime Minister, what you are dealing with, it has to be a shift, a spiritual thing that it's something you exercise something out of our DNA in order to make this thing happen. DNA as a country.
As a country.
Yeah, big time. Yeah.
Boy, I am. You kind of stirred up some memories, and just when you look at the ways in which people are delayed in bringing their productive ideas to birth, and the PM might be saying he might be unfairly putting a greater burden on the public sector than they really deserve. Because when you look at it now, there's a Rock Mobile.
Where's that now?
I couldn't say precisely, but the principal of Rock Mobile was in discussions with Carousel. I mean, documented discussions.
Yes.
He had put forward a proposal to take over the assets and various things. We had matters in court which were adjourned on the basis that these discussions with Rock Mobile were to be given a chance to work itself through. They had interaction with the regulators in which Carousel's name was called as a part of whatever it is they were proposing. Rock Mobile submitted their application, were licensed, got spectrum,
With them then.
and were set loose now to go and deploy and execute on their business plan. All of that in the time that it took for them to pretty much bury Carousel. Not the actual killing of Carousel, just the burial part. All of that. So whatever it is that the public sector needed to do during that time frame, they did it.
Yeah, and quickly too.
And quickly, absolutely. So that's one business
because
that could
they
never
got
say
father somewhere.
that it was delayed.
Yeah, but because they might have got father. Yeah.
So the public sector can perform.
They will
in other
perform.
words.
They will perform. So when we hear that, you can't take it. Yeah, we're lamenting, but are we doing the real things that will bring about the change? Are we? We're not doing the things that will bring about the change. We're not doing a bring about the change. Let's do a blind study. So, we have a blind study.
Yes,
so, okay, I have $1 million Jamaican dollars. You don't know my identity. Somebody else have $1 million Jamaican dollars that they want to invest. They don't have the identity. And we're going along. You put that and say, it's the same proposal, I put it to you that when the identity of this black Jamaican will be versus a white Jamaican person, the white man
It's
The
beats
same
and
$1
yeah,
million US
man,
dollar
steps
trying
ahead.
to do investment. And it is something
No,
that
you would be
uh,
still under scrutiny for drug running and money laundering. I know you come to have $1 million.
yes.
And that other man would be, yes, but
Yeah,
yeah, him inherited.
yeah, but the other
We're
thing,
still at that place in our
and then in the
consciousness.
and the other thing is, people out of the diaspora say the same thing too. Black Jamaicans who have done well overseas want to invest back into their country, and
It's a struggle.
it is a major struggle. But you don't know.
Just a quick update on one issue. Do you remember the young policeman whose child died after being left in the motor vehicle? The hearing is underway. It's a committal hearing is
What is that?
underway.
What's the difference?
Whether his matter should be submitted to the circuit court for to be tried for manslaughter.
Okay.
It has been, its part heard will resume on the 28th of February. I don't even know how I feel about it because it's such a tragedy for the parents, for both parents.
Yeah, I can.
And there's a well-known and effective defense that we are aware of from another jurisdiction where this kind of thing happens more often than it really should. We don't have too many cases of it in Jamaica. So I, for one, I'm very sympathetic. He may be convicted. If he's convicted, it should be non-custodial. That's what I think.
Okay.
I mean, there's no doubt that there's no
stress.
doubt that he left the child in the car. There's no doubt that the child died. It is a homicide. Whether he is culpable in the criminal sense, there is obviously negligence. Let me see if he's stating a defense in the case, what's happening before the court. So far, what we're getting from it is that the case started. It started on Tuesday. They're not finished with the process. It continues on the 28th of February. They were not able to complete the process. So says the attorney who is representing Detective Sergeant Dobson. The attorney is projecting that it will in fact be completed on the 28th. The judge is going to make a decision as to whether or not the case should be committed to the circuit court. If it's not to be committed, then I kind of wonder what will happen, because they're not. Let's see. There's a repetition of what happened. 1 month after the tragedy took place, a file was sent by the JCF to the Director of Public Prosecutions for a ruling on whether Dobson should be charged in relation to the child's death.
He was charged?
The ruling came in June 2022 when the DPP declared that Dobson should be charged. Dobson made his first appearance before the St. Elizabeth Parish Court, Santa Cruz. Okay, so
I just hope that
yeah.
he's going through counseling himself and his wife, and because that's rough enough. Even with the negligence, nobody would want to lose a child that
Oh
way.
my goodness. You sure don't.
No, nobody would want to lose a child that way. So, kind of, it's unfortunate, and we just continue to pray for Detective Sergeant and Dobson and all of what is happening in his situation. Cause that, me tell you, I've known a couples where they're doing together, and then I don't know if it's true, the negligence of one person, the child died, and they ended up being divorced.
Yes.
Ended up being divorced and separated.
And there are situations too where there's no issue of negligence. There's just issue of overwhelming grief and isolation
Yeah.
that tears apart the marriage,
Yeah.
because maybe one partner is grieving in a different way, both
The other
grieving,
person, yeah.
and the grief creates a wedge between the
both
two
of them,
that
and they don't have
you can't
the presence
overcome.
of mind to say we need some help.
Yeah.
Even as we've been focusing on mental health in our country and what's been happening to our our young people. It just came up again this week, the mental health of our children and all of what they are suffering. It's a major, 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 major thing. Um, and, and some I've dealt with it in a different way in terms of the lockdowns and some children have become overly aggressive. Some of the children have locked themselves away. They don't relate to anybody. It just, the impact is still not yet felt and seen by all of us. And it's just something there, sleeping, sleeping, sleeping. But we got to prepare to deal with it.
Yeah, because it will awake.
It's gonna awake, in regards to what we need to do.
Yeah, we're gonna take our 9:30 break. We'll be Good morning and welcome back. All right, we're in the last unprincipled segment. It's Free Flowing Thursday. May I remind you as I defend Pastor Percival's outburst, but I shared a dream with him. Should I share my dream? No, that dream too. I dreamt that a golden butterfly sat on my head. And it's because we're here admiring a tiny golden bird with some black markings he's hanging out with us this morning. I wish you could see him. He was in the mango tree. Then he came in here. I thought something was wrong. Like he couldn't, sometimes they get trapped and can't make their way out. Mm-hmm. But then as I'm feeling some sympathy for him, he just sailed under the mango tree. He's still here visiting with us. So we're blessed by nature where we are. And then Pastor Percival made an outburst. I don't know how to explain it except that we're in the final moments of the show. Freedom a come.
Goal is coming.
Goal a come. It sounded like one of those football yells.
Goal!
Oh boy. All right. We were talking a little bit. We saw Lauryn Hill here sending a message of love and hope to the Marley children. And of course, she looks fabulous. I had to go and look to see how many children she had again. 5 children with Rowan Marley. The connection, Lowell wants to know, what's the connection with looking fabulous and having many children? Her age, actually. I was there thinking, what age would she be now? Because, but she looks great. And she was giving a message. The Marleys have said goodbye to Joseph Marley, whose death we knew. Yes, yeah. But the message she gives is really what drew my attention. Be compassionate, forgiving of each other, listen to each other, protect each other, hold each other close.
Just talking to the family.
Speaking to the family.
And as we continue to say on this program, I think it probably has become a very scratch record for us that we believe that our success, our recovery, our movement as a nation is very much going to be dependent on the decisions we take personally. But the first place of renewal and revitalization is the family.
The family.
So she was talking to all of us.
Yeah.
Hold each other close.
Well, just understand.
Just hold each other close.
Don't take it literally.
Of course. I must hold each other close. There's something about holding on to somebody's hand. I found it so very impactful in grief counseling. Some of the times you just have to sit down there and you have to say a word.
Like Job and his friend.
Yeah, and I just have to hold on to the person's hand, and it communicates to the person, I'm here with you. I don't know if I feel your pain, but I'm empathizing with what you are. So she's saying to them, okay, you've lost a brother. Whatever has happened before, you remember this thing, you're a family. And some of the times I have to remind myself of that, even in terms of how you relate into my personal family and how you relate to the family of God. We have to look out for each other. We have to be close to each other. We have to do it because that is going to be important. Those relationships, crucial, vital.
I wake up, Pastor Percy. I was just thinking that I'm okay if you don't hold me close. That's what I was thinking.
It's a hug. It's so much in a hug.
Yeah. The truth is, a hug is a very powerful thing. We certainly learned that during the COVID times.
Yeah.
When hugging was
restricted.
Was an offense. Is there a song? What is it? Hugging up is against the law. When hugging up was against the law.
Oh,
my goodness, that is a prophetic song. Is it prophetic?
Yeah.
When hugging up was against the law.
Is that a Sparrow song?
It's Sparrow? Do you know, I was mentioning some Sparrow songs to my niece. She had never even heard about Sparrow. And then when I hunt down and find a couple of the songs and the lyrics and so on, she asked if Broadcasting Commission was around in that time. And then The one that he does about the Congo man.
Yes.
That one, no, that one is offensive on every level. I read somewhere and saw that it had actually been banned in a few places.
Yes, yes, that it, yeah.
But when that
He
she,
was very tongue in cheek.
boy, but to hear she had never even heard about some of the songs, and of course, when you play the music, you see the DNA of some of the songs that people are very familiar with now. But I thought it was very funny that she had never even heard about Sparrow.
Oh, geez, you serious? And she's in media?
She's in her 20s. So you mean that
She's in
that's in
media.
media? What that have to do? She's not a music historian. You realize Sparrow is deep, deep history.
Sparrow still alive?
I don't think so. Is Sparrow still alive?
Sparrow. Mighty Sparrow.
He is?
Yeah,
Well,
Mighty
I
Sparrow.
loved him. I loved his music. That was some of the campus music, and I didn't even realize he's still alive.
Yeah, see if he's still alive. Yeah,
yeah,
still
he's
alive. He's still alive.
How old is he now?
1935. Born in 1935. So that means he's 80.
If he's 100.
He's 88 this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I just want to mention one thing about, I'm not obsessed with Haiti, but I believe that Haiti requires
Special
our
attention.
deepest attention. Yes. So the Bahamian PM is calling for a Haitian-led initiative to solve the unfolding socio-economic and political situation in Haiti. This is against the background of, I think Canada has raised a call for international support. Canada making the call beyond it, that is like saying America couldn't do it, hasn't done it, which we all know to be so. But it's not often that one of the big guys call out the other big guy, so to speak.
They call out everybody.
They're calling out everybody. I am calling out CARICOM. I continue to do so because I think there's a solution to be coined from all that's going on here that involves the people of the region being in the front line, addressing and being sisterly or neighborly or brotherly to Haiti. So I kind of love it that Prime Minister Philip Davis from the Bahamas, is saying that the solution lies in a Haitian-led initiative that should include the support of CARICOM leaders. The crisis in Haiti, he says, is getting worse. He's chairman of the 15-member regional integration movement.
Oh, he's no chairman.
And he's saying, let's get with it. Oh, I pray that we will get the opportunity to be a part of bringing change and seeing peace in Haiti. Wow. That's the note on which I want to end
one of the songs
my contribution this morning.
That I love is Capitalism Gone Mad. Remember Mighty Sparrow?
Capitalism gone mad.
Yes. If our
I only remember the I only remember
you got to be a millionaire or some kind of petit bourgeois. And then anytime you live in here in this country, you got to be in skullduggery, making your money illicitly to live like somebody in this country. It is outrageous and insane. Them crazy prices in Port of Spain. In Kingston, Jamaica. Like the merchants, them going out their brain, and the working man like he only toiling in vain. Wherever you hear a television for 7,000. This song is like from 1967 onward.
Really?
Yes. A pair of sneakers, $200. 98,000 for motor cars. At last, in we've seen capitalism gone mad.
It's sudden getting more bad. Yes, poor Sparrow, they must be hiding the price of a television from him now. They're saying, Mighty Sparrow, you don't know.
Oh,
things were cheap in that time. When was it?
I was saying when I looked at it, and let's see if I can find when he did it.
Wow.
So,
Nice. I mean, when I look back to and saw that many of his songs were before I was born, I'm like, I didn't even know. When I was liking up Sparrow, that I was liking old music.
See, I
I know.
You know.
When I was researching him, I found some of them.
Some of his very rude songs.
Yes, man. Harry was in the piggery in 2019.
Oh boy.
What I was telling her about Gene and Dinah.
Okay, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Gene and Dinah. That's not the song she said. That's not the one that was banned, but he does have some
Very
raunchy, satirical
good tune.
tunes.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so, but we are embracing, aren't we? What
Yes.
Prime Minister Davis, now chairman of CARICOM,
So we
is
have to
saying.
intervene as a region.
Yes.
You know what we could do? We could
Yeah.
find a way, send the Dons over there to help them to clear the situation. What do you think?
What we're going to send over there? The Dons? Our Dons?
I don't know.
You want to try to get rid of some of our struggles?
Yeah.
Anyway, it is now 9:50, and we are going to say our goodbyes. You hear?
So I hope that, Lloyd, if you can find Capitalism Gone Mad by Mighty Sparrow.
We're organizing that. That's what we're doing.
If you can do it,
Yeah.
it'd be nice.
All right. Well, let's say our goodbyes. Thank you to those who have assisted us on air and online. We appreciate your participation in this morning's show. And thank you very much to the Ligony Club, who has accommodated us so nicely here, even down to the birds in the tree.
birds
We
are a
can
part
hear
of the
them.
setting.
Yes.
They're chirping
And to
along.
JD's Urban Pub. We're not able to eat right now, but I can tell you, whenever you're ready for breakfast here, it is delicious, and it is about among the finest local fare that you can receive. Back in the studio, thank you very much to the engineer and, of course, our one-man band producer here at Ligony
As you
Club.
reminded us.
Yes, we thank you, sir, for keeping us on point. Mr. Percival.
It's our weekend, and it's a long weekend for me.
Why is it long? It's not like you have things planned.
Three
Oh,
weddings to do. Our fast comes to an end tomorrow. And funeral too. We have a wedding and a funeral tomorrow in the same day. And some other stuff. Yeah.
definitely keeps you humble.
But I tell you, and I don't know why I keep mixing up weddings and funeral. I tell people that I'm doing a wedding when it's a funeral, and a funeral when I'm doing a wedding. Anyway.
As long as the bodies are all sorted.
You know it's true, yes, that's true.
On that note, have a good weekend, everyone.
What would I know about it?